This is Fam Electric Ghost, and we're live on the air with Elizabeth Snyder for the first time. You're a master photographer specializing in women's portraits. And
Yep.
how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing good. So, want to let people know we are a featured podcast on the Newsly platform. You might see that icon up there says Newsly. For those of you listening or watching, if you use that coupon code GHOST, you can check that out for 30 days free. We are again our featured podcast on Newsly. That's an audio only platform, and so you can check that out later tonight. We'll be on Newsly, and want to let people know that this episode we're going to talk about overcoming fear of anything, and then we've also got your link up there. So people that want to check this out, we have ElizabethSnyderPhotography.com. That'll be fully clickable, so you don't have to remember that. It will be there during the episode, but don't worry, you'll be able to click through on it on all the podcast platforms that we're on. So again, welcome to the Fam Electric Ghost podcast.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
So one thing we like to ask people before we get into it is what motivates you and why do you do what you do?
I am, my motivation changes. It depends on the day, but the reason I do what I do is, and I'll get into my story a little bit later, but being a single mom, I'm married now, but when I was a single mom, struggling, I noticed that I did not make time for art and did not make time for myself. And now I get to have these pamper days and have these amazing conversations with women in my studio. And I am always astounded by what they come out with. And it is a great feeling to watch somebody go from scared and sometimes even angry about having to have their headshot done to laughing and enjoying themselves, and they can't wait to do it again.
That's interesting because you're in the arts. I like to talk to a lot of creative people, and I always like to get the terms of artists, why they do what they do, and why were you drawn to like photography?
Oh,
What
okay.
made you want
So
to get into that? Yeah.
when I was 8 years old, my aunt had me help her build a studio in her attic for headshots for models, and I've been in it since I was 8 years old. And I knew even then that this is what I was meant to do, and
Mm.
hanging on to that has it saved my life over and over again. It's an amazing thing to know exactly what your calling is that young, and knowing
Yeah.
that that's what you're meant to do.
That's a really big difference because I talk to a lot of artists and there's a lot of pushback, with artists where, musicians or people in theater and people are like, oh, you need to do something that's not so unpredictable.
Right.
So a lot of times people in the arts, they don't get a lot of support from family. It's interesting. You have the opposite story, which is not what I hear a lot of the time. So that must feel
Yeah.
really good.
It does. My aunt was the only one that really supported this, but like my mom wanted what was best for us, and for her it was like, oh, get a state job, you'll be set for life. But it just, I'm not made for that.
Yeah. Well,
So
it's good to
yeah.
know. It's really interesting when people realize that they're
Hmm.
not built for that,
Yeah.
because a lot of times it's that kind of artist mindset is like, you have some issues sometimes where you get like imposter syndrome or people don't know if they should do it. But if you felt it like at that young an age that you felt like this feels right, this feels
Hmm.
this is something I want to do. And
Absolutely.
that's really cool. And then the other thing, I guess, is like, why did you decide to specialize in women's portraiture?
Um, I did. I decided to specialize in that. Basically, it just means that I'm really good at getting women comfortable in front of the camera.
Mhm.
Um, like a good photographer is a good photographer, but I really wanted to give women, especially moms who don't always make enough time for themselves to do things, this pamper day, make them feel great. Our
Mm.
team is all female as well, so it's really supportive atmosphere. And it really, it's such a great feeling to watch somebody see their portraits for the first time from somebody else's point of view. It's almost like the world sees this. You are busy negative self-talking in the mirror, but the
Yeah.
world sees this, and show them exactly what's coming out from inside. And there's really no better feeling than that for me.
It must feel good when you get the feedback from people, because sometimes, people might not realize that they need to be kind of catered to
Yeah,
feel comfortable, and they might not
absolutely.
understand that, like, it might take a woman's touch to actually understand or have the empathy, right?
Hmm.
Because if you go to a certain, other type of photographer, like a male photographer, and they might be coming from some kind of bias, right? Or they might be coming from a kind of, maybe they're intimidating and they don't realize they're intimidating because they just think they're an expert. So
Right.
is that kind of like you get like feedback as from your customers as to like why they feel better with you?
I do get that feedback. And I kind of like, how you kind of attract what you're putting out, right? So I'm a very laid back, like very laid back person. I like to create a very comfortable, relaxed atmosphere. And we're not on airs here, like um we're talking, we're bringing up stuff from when we were teenagers, and getting kind of
Mhm.
into the stuff. um and um I have gotten the feedback that I am somebody who makes them feel comfortable, but I'm not for everybody. So if
Mhm.
somebody does need that little bit of stuffiness,
Yeah,
it's yeah.
I guess
um
it's kind of case by case
it
scenario.
is.
Like if somebody's grown up with like that's what they expect, and they
Yes.
don't
Yeah.
expect to be empathized with, they expect the other thing because that's what they know, then
Like the buttoned up, like, yeah.
yeah, yeah, it might not work.
Totally not what I am.
Yeah, so if you're more like let's kind of have like a chill and not be so apprehensive because these people probably get, they get, yeah, I guess they get nervous,
Yeah.
because they like, a lot of times when you're trying to present yourself is like you have to get that kind of photography capability to make somebody be more natural.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
instead of like
we laugh a lot.
yeah, so
We
you get
laugh
them
a
in
lot.
that
Yep,
mindset, right? So you're not gonna be so stuffy, or you're gonna be more relaxed, so it'll be a good
exactly.
picture.
Yep, for sure. Yeah, and, like I said, our team is all female as well, and it just adds to that, like, collective, feeling of being comfortable in a space with women who are gonna support you.
So what are some of the things that people worry about when they first arrive to your studio? What are the
Usually
things that
it's Yeah, usually it's their
they
weight. Almost
oh,
everybody is like, "Oh, if I was just 10 pounds slimmer, and you're gonna take care of that in Photoshop, right?" And usually, like, what I like to tell people is we're good for 20 pounds with posing and lighting alone. And I don't use heavy Photoshop. I want it to look like them in the end, right?
mhm,
But it is usually weight, and that's more of a women's topic because we're bombarded on daily basis from things that cosmetic companies or weight loss stuff, and especially in January they ramp all that stuff up, and they make you feel like, if you don't look like this or act like this, then you don't have any worth. And it's been since we were tiny little girls. So, and I find
yeah,
that with men, although they are a little more, some of them can be a little more self-conscious, but most men have that natural confidence, and they go into the poses like that I'm asking them naturally, and they're not a ton of work.
yeah,
Women, it takes a little while to get them comfortable. And it's because of that negative.
expectation.
Yeah.
Yeah, societal expectations, and then, like,
Hmm.
if you everybody's got social media now, and, you're checking all these, like, influencers,
Hmm.
and all these people present themselves in they're using Photoshop, or they're using AI, or they're using filters, and it's like, is that reality? And so a lot of people have got this, like, they're not being shown the actual, like, truth in
Right.
terms of like, or accepting of things that are like, standard, but or just like yourself. Like people don't want to accept, and I know the vulnerability of themselves. It's like an artist thing. It's like do you really want to, you want to clone or copy other things, right?
Hmm.
Because that's what's the trend.
Right.
Instead of trying to be your authentic, natural self, it sounds like you're trying to bring out more of the natural, authentic beauty that somebody already as an individual is,
That's
and you
exactly
probably
it.
got the eye for it because you're an artist, and you can recognize that. But maybe do you spend time trying to let people know that exists?
I do. And especially in hair and makeup, we have these conversations. So everybody that I do gets professional hair and makeup in the studio, and it is um about an hour, and during that time, that's when I'm really getting to know the client. So we ask, we flow into some harder conversations just to make sure that we're all on the same page with what they're expecting, and what they want. So we want to be realistic too, and be like, yes, you're sensitive about the 10 pounds, but let's do it like we'll take in the shirt a little bit with a clamp, or we'll pose you slightly differently so that we're accentuating those curves, and you do have that hourglass. And um, they never trust me until they see the pictures. And once they're here for the reveal, it's like it's rare that I don't get somebody crying in the studio when they see them, because they've never looked at themselves like everybody else has.
And do you get a lot of people that have different reasons why they want the photo? And do
Yes.
you have different like strategies based on what type of photos, and maybe kind of give an examples of like the common types of photos or what people maybe should be asking for when they really don't know?
Absolutely. So that is you okay. So headshots are kind of iffy, because some people want them for their business or for their personal branding for whatever reason. Some people are using them for dating, online, like dating apps and stuff. Like I don't know much about that world, but it's tough out there, and they want something more professional to show. Some people want boudoir photos, and that's more for like a partner, or just to have like a pamper day to themselves. Those are the ones that I don't usually have to fight with. The ones
Mhm.
that are a little tougher are the people that come in that are there because their job told them that they needed an updated headshot,
Oh,
and they're upset by it. And a lot of times it's because they're using the same headshot that they had like 20 years ago that they love, right?
they
But
want
you
to
got to
use
look
that
like you.
one. Yeah,
Yeah, those are the ones that are a little more difficult.
that's interesting. Because it's like I guess people have to know like what they're getting into, and then you could probably show them a lot because you do this for a living, so you have a good idea of what works and what doesn't. And,
Absolutely.
and I guess like the harder client is somebody that thinks they know what works when maybe it really doesn't.
You know, I The only people that I've run into that with are like actors. So I'm in Buffalo, and we've just kind of built a bunch of studios. So there's more and more TV shows and movies coming into our area. And we've been getting a ton of actor headshots and actor portfolios for people that want to like be in leads or be as an
Auditions.
extra.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then the actor model world is kind of crossover, and those are the ones that I need to kind of fight with a little bit, because they're used to taking selfies. They're not used to having the
Somebody do
human
it for 'em.
tripod here
Yeah, yeah.
taking their picture, and I have to direct a lot and show them the comparison between what they want to do and what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, it's kinda like not everybody's like an expert, but
Right.
the problem, I guess, would be like if you get somebody who thinks they're an expert when that's like, this is your craft,
Yeah.
and then somebody comes in with the kinda like, "Well, I do this with my iPhone, or I do my own headshots, or I do
Yeah.
my own, like, web show, and I know what I'm doing," and, yeah, that kinda, like, intimidating, or I guess you're a people person, so you
Yes.
found strategies because of what you're doing is, like, you have to learn how to deal with people, and there's
Right.
people got, type A personality, type B, type C, like, you come in and so does that come into play where you've like, oh, lessons learned that you can like recognize a strategy once you start hearing what they
Yeah.
say to you. Oh, I know I need to use
Yeah,
this
it
kind of
depends on the person, but that is absolutely that's absolutely accurate. And explaining showing is a little more powerful than like just telling them.
stuff. Yeah,
And I'm good showing people the back of the camera. Like that's not something that I get. I've been doing this for 30 years. So, whatever.
mhm,
But the other thing that you just brought up about the iPhone issue is that like those cameras are excellent. It is like they are fabulous. They have great processing. They have a great sensor in them, but it's how you use it. So
yeah.
it's
You still
knowing
not
what good light is.
yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah,
It's it's like a musician. It's like if you could get somebody like if you know how to play a guitar, you know how to play a keyboard, and you get these producers that don't play,
yeah,
but they cut and paste. And so
you're right.
they there's a different type of minds. Yeah, you can cut and paste, but if you have somebody that can play like an Elton John, Billy Joel, and then you're
Hmm.
cutting and pasting, it's like the person that can play can kind of tell you the intricacies of what it is to actually hit those notes a certain way.
Right.
It's like when you're doing the lighting and all the details of photography, you might not know how to use your instrument. Like
Exactly.
your camera is an instrument, and you're like, you're a master with your instrument, and
Hmm.
you know all the subtleties, you know all the stuff about it. Other people made this thing, well, I can do it,
Right.
but they don't know what you know.
Right. Exactly. No, that's exactly it. And if you are an amateur or whatever, if you want to get into it, there's no reason you can't use your iPhone. Like if you're just learning the basics, it's totally acceptable. But once you start like kind of digging into photography a little bit more, you know that um there's more to
Yeah, you
it.
want an actual camera. There's
Yeah.
things about having a camera with all the lenses and the different capabilities that a
Yes.
professional camera, it's like, it's the same idea as like a real Steinway
Yeah.
versus a sampled Steinway.
Yeah.
There's there's a difference.
Big, big difference. Yeah.
Big
Yeah.
difference.
Yeah, I was just having a conversation with somebody else today about lens choices and that's a huge thing. So like on your iPhone or on your smartphone, you don't really get the choice of what lens you use on that. It just kind of does it for you. But knowing what lens choices are going to warp or are going to, just make things look a little wonky and you're not sure why that's happening. And you need someone to kind of show you how that works.
So I guess as a profile expert, what do you say the number one mistake do you see people doing over and over again, that you can kind of comment about?
I have a couple of things. One is people who go to weddings or are in weddings and they're wearing, beautiful clothing and they will sometimes use the wedding photos for their profile picture. And sometimes there's like sleeveless dresses or whatever. And then you crop from like your shoulder up and then you look naked. Um, so
Uh-oh.
those aren't good. I've done a ton of research, especially with LinkedIn, and I am shocked by how many people are using selfies.
Use their wedding
Um,
dress photo
yeah,
for
yeah.
self for their business.
It's so not right. The other one is like, a picture that someone else took. So like not a selfie, but like someone's holding a fish. Or
Yeah,
they have whatever prop next to them, which is a little cheesy, but
yeah,
it is what it is. And if that's the vibe you're going for, and that's what the people that you're trying to attract, great. But otherwise, you should have an updated photo every year at the least, so that people know exactly who you are. And nobody out there cares about the 10 pounds or maybe the
yeah,
aging wrinkles that you get. Like nobody else cares. You're the only one that cares about that.
yeah. I mean, because a lot of your character, I mean, is your face,
Exactly.
and it's like it's your individual self,
Yeah.
and people probably think they could make themselves look better, and
Right.
then that kind of goes to this like perfection kind of aspect, and you probably get a lot of people like you had mentioned, like they want to Photoshop
Yeah.
and try to make it perfect. And I've kind of been a purveyor of the kind of, natural kind of, what do you call it, a flow state, like what
Yes.
happened, like point in time.
Yeah.
And you're probably a good judge of that point in time because you're setting a mood in your
Hmm.
studio. You're getting somebody relaxed, and then you kind of take the shots in that moment. You kind of feel the moment, like any artist feels a moment and say, "Well, I want to capture that. I'm going to
Hmm.
capture that on tape. I'm going to capture that, that moment." And then if you go and try to, you know, correct that moment, overdo it,
Yeah.
sometimes you can make something so artificial
Right.
it doesn't look right.
Well, there's a trend in like the 2010s that people were like they were way overboard and everybody looked plastic for a while. And it is that moment, like that's kind of what I'm selling more than the pictures is like they look at the pictures, but they're reminded of this awesome day that they had
Mhm.
professional hair and makeup and wearing all their fun, fancy clothes and whatever else.
Okay.
And it's, it is embracing what they were seeing here, but also how other people see them is
Yeah.
really what I'm trying to get across. And it's not always easy, but it is very like raising, like
Yeah.
the
Make
tide
you feel
raises all ships. Yeah,
yeah.
like
Well, it's
that's
like
what it feels like.
you're creating an experience. It's not
Yes.
just like from what you're saying to me when I take it, like when somebody comes to book a session with you, you're it's gonna be a memorable experience. It's not just a photo.
Right.
It's like everything that you're saying is like a spa day. It's like it's
Yes.
gonna make you feel good
Yep.
so that when you take that photo, whatever self-doubt you had before when you were coming out the car and you opened up the door and you walked
Hmm.
in, you're all anxious and you're freaking out, and then suddenly like you come along and you make them feel at ease, and you actually make them smile, you make them happy, you make them feel
Right.
good, and then that radiates, and that's kind of like the artist's perspective, is like that you catch that moment,
Yep.
like an artist that plays live, like in front of
Exactly.
an audience. It's what the audience is feeding back to me that I feed back to them.
Yep. That's
And
exactly
then
it.
that whole moment, you're capturing it on film. We
Yes.
capture it on tape, or
Yeah.
we might capture it on film too. But yeah. So I kind of get that perspective because a lot of times we cross genre. You know,
Absolutely.
video, photography, music is kind of all crossed when you're a creative. You kind of
Mhm.
cross multiple areas all the time to kind of push your work.
Mhm. Absolutely. Yeah, I think probably one of my favorite moments when I start a session is after they're done and they look very good. I have a full length mirror that I'll point them toward and they can say what they want to correct or not, or they're just like, oh my God, I look great. But then I'll pull them into something called a true mirror. And it's a company that makes these mirrors that are non-reversing, so it's
Yeah.
two regular mirrors butted up against each other at a right angle.
Although it
And
doesn't reverse the image. Oh wow.
what's that?
It doesn't reverse things, so you
Right.
actually see it the way it
So
is.
you actually see it in live time, and I'm able to kind of talk them through it. So like I'll show them the regular mirror, and then I show them the true mirror, and we go through the whole like your eyes are the window to the soul. This is what people see when they look at you. What do you think? And
Mm,
that
wow,
that is very profound for people. Like
that's
it's
cool.
astounding because they've never seen themselves from that point of
Yeah, I
view.
never heard of that. I never heard of a
Yeah.
true mirror. It's the first time I've ever heard anybody speak to that.
Yeah,
But
it's
I
fantastic. I love it.
would think filmmakers probably get into that. They probably, you know.
Probably.
Have you worked with like musicians that they're approach you for like headshots that might be for like um for their purposes for like doing like a lot of times an artist will do their kind of they'll set up their PDK.
Yeah, yeah.
They'll set up their album cover or the liner notes, and they want a photographer to do capture the band or the artist and put it into this presentation that is the album, like
Yeah,
vinyl album or
absolutely.
CD cover. Have you done stuff like that with artists and they have a
I've
certain perspective that they
I've
want you
done
to
it a
do?
couple of times. Yeah. Very little, like very low. But it's usually actors and models that contact me, but the couple of band shoots that I did were a lot of fun and I would love to do more of them.
Yeah,
They get me out of like the studio, right? Like we go on
yeah.
a
Oh,
Yeah,
you do it outside the studio. They're more into
exactly.
like not doing it in the studio, but doing it like where they are.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And that's always a ton of fun. I love it.
But the studio is a different type of thing, where like, if you're an artist, like if somebody's setting up like, podcasters probably
Mhm.
want like a PDK, they
Yeah.
probably want to do headshots
Mhm.
because, we're out here now. This is like a whole new form where we promote our shows. We have the cover photo for what that shows up on Facebook or YouTube or Spotify. Have you run into people wanting that?
Yes, I have. And we'll do more branding headshots.
More
So it's kind of
brand.
a little bit of stuff, and we'll go on location. We'll get all of the details, like the microphone and whatever else they're using. We'll get the office space that they're working in. We'll get their team, and then of course the headshots of everybody to kind of just to have them. But yeah, that's more of a branding thing, and I've done a ton of those. I love it.
Is a branding like is a totally different mindset when you're doing the branding photo versus like the LinkedIn photo
Yeah,
versus is a
it
totally
is.
different
It's completely
perspective.
different. Yeah, and especially with wherever they are, like that's where I should be. And if they don't have like an office, like if it's a home office and it's just a small bedroom or something, then we usually just do it in the studio. But
Mhm.
when I go out on location, I have to know if there's windows, I have to know how much light I should bring. And then of course having them bring all of making sure that everything that they want to be photographed with is in the space. Um, there's a lot of work that goes into it.
That's interesting because there's a lot of work to set up, and
Yes.
we kind of, musicians, like when we go to set up our sound check,
Yep.
you know, it's like we have to get all this stuff to make sure the soundboard's going to come out right, and we're checking the levels. So you're checking all your light levels and the natural light and your artificial light,
Right.
what
Right. And
camera.
if I move, I have to do it all over again.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
the hair and the makeup. I've never really gone deep into that, but like, how much do you work with like a lot of experts in hair and makeup that you've learned that work well with you? Like, I guess you
I
built your team, but
do.
did you when you had to build your team? Did you have to learn things about which people to pick for those roles?
I did. And we've been through a few that didn't quite work out. Their availability wasn't like always there. Um, and that's fine. And I'm actually a licensed cosmetologist, so I do know what I'm looking at when I see
You
them
always
doing
know
hair and
what you want.
makeup. Exactly. But I found there's a, and I'm going to give them a shout out here if that's okay. But Blush Salon in North Tonawanda is excellent. They've been my girls for the last 5 or 6 years now, and they are fabulous. And the owner is contracted with the NFL, and she's got the Real Housewives and everything else under contract.
Oh,
So
wow, that's awesome.
yeah, she's amazing, and her girls are absolutely fabulous. I've not had any issues with them at all, and they know exactly what to do and when to do it.
It helped you that you already knew something about cosmetology, that you understood some aspects of it, so you didn't have to be totally deferential to the expert, but you kind of know what you want, right?
Exactly.
So it's good to so you think, is that a mistake that people make when they maybe are a photographer and they don't know
I
that
think
maybe
it
they need
is.
to kind of beef up what they don't
Yeah.
know?
Right.
Is that
Well, and especially if they don't know the terminology or they don't know how to explain what's wrong, and that they need to adjust.
oh, yeah.
Yeah. So that kind of gets them a little stuck. But there's YouTube videos on it. It's not something they can't learn. It's just not something I think that some people think about that they do need to know.
Yeah, it's like if you're a filmmaker, you're starting to work with the lighting crew and you don't know the terms, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you're like if you're the director, like it's like, I want this shot, but I don't know how to tell my lighting director what I'm looking for because I
Exactly.
don't know the acronyms and the terms and the tech for what he's doing. And I say, oh, I just don't like it. It's like, well, that doesn't really help you.
Exactly. Like, what don't you like about it?
Yeah. It's like if you could be more descriptive about what you don't like, because that's like the feedback is like when you're an artist, like if you can tell me what about the light you don't like, what about this,
Yeah.
the I think that's they're just telling you like, I don't like it. Well, what can I do
Doesn't
with
help.
that?
Exactly. Okay, why?
Is
Yeah,
that the same thing with the client? If they can't describe what they don't like about the photo, then do you start to like, okay, well, what are they looking for?
it is. Yeah, and that's hard for them too because they don't always know what they don't like about it. It's usually something in their face. Almost
Mhm.
always. It's I don't know, I look weird here or my eye I don't have a lazy eye. Why is it like that? I'm like, girl, you
Yeah.
might. I have gotten that before. I'm like, I didn't do anything to your eyes.
So I guess there's another question like to get into like what's the advice do you give to somebody that wants to follow their dream into the arts and you've been able to do it? And can you kind of give some pointers for people maybe they're having a hard time with that?
No, absolutely. If you are looking to do something regularly and maybe either help your income that you already have or completely quit your day job and go into it, I mean, start with weekends and see what you're able to do with that. Because you don't want to just go out, quit your job, and then like, what if it doesn't work out? Have something on the side, but as long as you are authentic with your art, and that's the thing, if you're doing it for you, that's what matters. Because
Mm,
when you're trying to do it for other people or trying to make a client happy or whatever, people can see that it isn't authentic. People can see that it's somebody else's view and not your own. That's a big thing, and that's my daughter is going to music school after next year, and that was a big thing because we're like, all right, she's going to be an artist. Let's
mhm.
figure this out.
Yeah.
And that was something that I told her too when she's writing her songs. It needs to be something that she wants to hear, that she's not doing it to fit into somebody else's box. She's doing it for her, and those are the things that
Yeah.
people notice.
Yeah. As a producer, the thing I always ask when I'm working with somebody is like, don't show me that you can clone like Taylor Swift or Beyonce or something
Right.
like that. Show me the song that you're scared to show anybody.
Exactly.
Because that's the song that's probably close to what I wanna work on,
Mhm.
because what I wanna work on is like that emerging independent artist that I haven't heard, and I think that you've got something, and
Mhm.
that's what your vulnerability, your individuality is your edge,
Mhm.
and so many
Yep.
people kinda, like, throw that away and say, "Well, I just wanna try to clone somebody else," because that's kinda like what people are taught. It's like, "Well, I gotta be the standard bearer, I gotta be part of the canon, I gotta that's what it is. It's like it's kind of when you're the outlier that when you show the vulnerability, show the individuality, that's your talent. That's why people want to use your service because you've got this edge they haven't seen somewhere else.
Mhm. Exactly. We have Beyonce. Like she's
Yeah,
doing her thing, and
she's
that's
doing her
great.
thing already.
Exactly. We need to know what you're going to show us.
Yeah, it's always like, yeah, that's the thing is always interesting. Another thing I always like to ask guests is like, what are three things about yourself that you don't think people would know about you that would be interesting for them to find out about?
All right. So I I often talk about this with people at the studio, which is also a way to kind of get them to be comfortable with their bodies. I've had cancer twice, and I'm a diagnosis of BRCA2, which just means that my body can't fight cancer. Um, so I've had to have a bilateral mastectomy and reconstruction and a hysterectomy, and usually when I tell people this, they kind of put their own stuff in their perspective a little bit, and they're like, "Oh, you're right." You know, like, the
Yeah,
scar I have from when I was 5 isn't that big a deal, is it? You know?
it's not as heavy as
And
they
it
thought. It's not as heavy as they
Yeah,
thought.
yeah, exactly. And I mean, I've lived through it. Like, it came from a very traumatic childhood and all the rest, and then got married and had kids, got divorced, had nothing, like there's a lot of things that I went through that was very, very scary. And I still hung on to that dream. Like I still, that's why I say it saved my life, because it is something that I knew innately that I was supposed to
Mhm.
be doing. So even when I'm at a soul sucking job at the bank, I was
Yeah.
like wasting their time because I was watching YouTube videos on photography the whole time. It's one of
Well,
those
you have
things
your
that
everybody has their kind of true north or compass, you know.
exactly.
A lot of times, like, that dream you have, and a lot of artists were kind of people would say, well, it's kind of childish to have like artistic dreams
Yeah.
because they're like, oh, you should be a banker, you should be this, you should be a lawyer, you should be a doctor. But it's like if something makes you feel good, it's like the creative spark
Yeah.
that gives you like the reason, like the reason to tour. Like, why do you want like be here? Is
Right.
because like the poetry makes you feel good, the photography makes you feel the music, the acting, even though you
Yeah.
might be just doing local plays, you still love being on stage, right?
Right.
That's what makes you feel alive. What's wrong with that? That's not like that childlike wonder that you
Mhm.
get as a creative. It kind of stays with you till you're not here,
It
you
absolutely
know.
does. Yeah.
And it's actually a good thing to have
Yeah.
because when the other things go away, you still have it.
Yep. For sure. No, it is one of those things that I've gotten into lots of fights with family about. And my daughter too. Like she's a high school junior this year, and she was at her dad's and he had a party, and all of his friends were putting her down and telling her that it's not going to happen. Why are you doing this? You better have a good minor, whatever. Like she was very upset.
Mhm.
Um and I let her know that those are limiting beliefs. You shouldn't
Yeah,
do that. But I noticed too, like if it's something you love doing, you're gonna want to do it more than you love sleep, right? Like you're gonna make it happen no
yeah.
matter what. And if you don't have like that kind of feeling, like if I need to do this to breathe, right? But if it's something that it's like I just like to do it, it's fun for me. Like there's nothing wrong with being a weekend warrior, like
Yeah, yeah.
do it when you can, sell what you can, and if that's enough for you, that's great. There's it doesn't have to like you don't need to make like billions of dollars doing what you're
No,
doing like to be successful. As long as you're happy, you're successful.
that's I think the problem. Some people say like, "I want $1,000,000." Like, why do you want $1,000,000?
Right.
Because, "Oh, it'll give me financial freedom." Well, you could be somebody that owns a pizza shop and you don't make $1,000,000, like, but you have your control of your own destiny because that's what you wanna do. Like, you like
Right.
having a family business, right?
Yep. No,
So
you're controlling your own destiny, you're controlling your own schedule. You're
yeah,
like, you're in
some peace
charge
of
of when
mind.
you wake up or
Yeah.
go to sleep, right? Yeah,
Hey, you don't have to be a multi-billionaire to have
exactly.
that feeling, and that's where
Mhm.
people get confused. They think every business has gotta hit the billion mark, or you gotta have, a million views, you gotta have all these likes. Like, if sometimes it can be that you reach the right person. It's like the law of attraction. Like,
Yeah,
if you do things and you reach the right clientele, then you build a reputation, and you can be sustainable. There's tons of indie artists
yeah,
that aren't on big labels that are able to tour the world and they live in a certain level. Like they're never
yes,
gonna be like Michael Jackson. They're not gonna be Prince, but they can actually stay in the game
yes, yeah,
because they learned to kind of like be in the zone they're in, but they have control of their destiny. They own their masters. They own their work. They can do the licensing. There's a lot of stuff as creatives today that if you own your licensing, you own your business, you own your techniques, and that you patent things, you have a certain thing. So you can make money that way.
yeah,
And so it doesn't have to be like you got a billion streams on Spotify to be
right,
the biggest artist. You can license a song, and if
exactly,
somebody might not be super big, but you can be sustainable. You could actually still be an artist.
right. Yeah, I mean, just live within your means, man.
Yeah,
Like who
yeah,
needs a $3,000 bag, right?
yeah. You don't have to have all the accoutrements and all the like everybody thinks that that's what you gotta have. You got like you see all these big artists, and they got the Gucci, and they got this, and they
Yeah.
got that, and they got the
Yeah.
Ferrari. But a lot of that's rented. It's a lot of
Yes,
it's like
it is. A lot of it's given too, is what
yeah, a
people
lot of
don't
it's
know.
yeah, it's just it's part of the image. They don't own
Yeah.
it. Like
Yep.
that's a rented mansion. That's a rented car. That's a rented Rolex. It's all rented.
Exactly.
It's like it's not what you, exactly what you, it appears to be.
Mhm.
So just being in like the law of attraction, like doing what you love will attract, will make you positive. You're a positive person. You're going to attract positivity, and
Mhm.
then things will happen and doors will open that you didn't expect. And I
Exactly.
think if you have that kind of mindset, it's a positive mindset.
Yeah, it's that happiness and that gratefulness that you feel when you finish a project and you're just so excited about it before it gets old and you're sick of it. That's what attracts it. Like it's having that well, gratitude. Like it's all gratitude, and it just attracts more of what you like. And it's a more powerful feeling than the negative is. Um it's hard to get to for some people.
So, a part of what you do you teach like photography as part of what you do?
I do have a class of beginner to manual. So if you're using just this shoot and snap, pick camera, or and you're on all the programs that they give you, but you haven't learned how to do it yourself, I'm very very good at. It's actually a 3-day workshop on how to get yourself from zero to manual and be
Wow,
comfortable with it.
that's awesome. I think it's great to be a teacher because like producers were teachers is like because it's like you're a music teacher or you're like anytime you take your art and you kind of get the next group of people to kind of understand it and you're not just keeping it to yourself, but you're actually kind of you know lifting everybody up by
Hmm.
allowing people to get into what you're so happy about what you do. It's kind of share the wealth.
Exactly. Yep.
You share the techniques. And it's like, well, I'm not just gonna hold on to them on my like ivory tower and act like I'm the only one. Like
Exactly.
like I want to kind of share the wealth so like I can hear better stuff or
Yep.
see better stuff or have people appreciate photography or
Yeah.
appreciate.
No, it's exactly that. And I think the first step to getting there is to let go of the competition mindset. Like if I share these secrets and somebody else is going to do them and then nobody will buy from me, right? Like that's not how that works. Like people vibe with whoever they're talking to, like if you're on their vibe, great. And like I said, I'm not for everybody, and you're not going to be for everybody, but it is great to share the knowledge, share the enthusiasm for it. And I love teaching beginners because they're just so excited, and the learning curve is so like it,
Yes.
it happens really quick. And then once you get like 30 years in, the stuff that I'm learning now is kind of like far and few between. Like I'm stepping up every couple of years,
Mhm.
instead of when you're a beginner, you fly through it and then you're like, oh great, I'm at this level now. It's
But
exciting.
I think also the great thing about teaching is students sometimes they throw a curveball and they ask you a question and it makes you think. It's like, wow,
Yeah.
I'm actually learning something. A
Yeah.
lot of times there's like a two-way street where you can learn from your students,
Yes.
and they can learn from you. But it's like it is possible to actually learn from somebody that doesn't know because the way the question they ask, right? And they come from a different perspective. It makes you look at something in a way maybe that you hadn't.
Hmm. No, that's for sure. And I've definitely had those questions where it's like, I don't know. I have to go look that up. I promise I'll get you an answer. And it's great.
Yeah, because it's like a lifelong learning.
Yeah.
A lot of times it's like you never get to be perfect because you're always in progress, right? You're always building up your aptitude, your capability, because it's like
Yes.
every day is a day to learn something or experience something different. And just when you get a project and you get this new person, they bring themselves and then they're not like anybody else. So then that's in itself is like a new thing. Every day is like a new thing, right?
Yeah.
So that's what makes it exciting, that you can actually,
Exactly.
you got this canvas. And it's like every
Mhm.
day is a new canvas.
Yeah, yeah, no, and that is why I love what I do. Like it is a very creative field. It's like, and I know most creatives like to do things at night and whatever, but I
Mm,
love that my days are all different. It's something that I look forward to. Meeting new people, and I'm an introvert. So like I love
mhm.
meeting one person at a time.
Yeah,
Not
that's
quite the
you're
whole
able to
big group
control
thing.
it. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, that's cool that you are able to, you know, to meet people, but, like, do it on your terms and what you're
exactly.
comfortable with. Which I think a
Yeah.
lot of us artists, we're kinda like, almost every artist, if you think about it, like, most of the time, you're by yourself when you're doing your work. Like, a
Mhm.
lot of us artists is like a musician is like, how much time am I in my lab? I'm in my
Right.
bedroom producer studio. I mean, even if I'm in a big studio, I'm kinda in a very small space
Mhm.
before I ever show anything to anybody. Right?
Right.
I'm just in this place, thinking it's great until I actually put it in front of somebody. It's like, oh, maybe it's not.
Oh, I've totally done that. Yeah.
But it's
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
it was great for the 5 days I was working on it, then it's like, "Oh, reality hit."
Yeah. Well, and that's something too that people don't really think about, is that there's always going to be somebody different or better than you, and sooner you accept that and are like, okay, everything's fine, chill out. I don't have to be way up there with
Yeah.
whoever. um it's good to do what I can give, and that's fine.
So I wanna let people know we're probably getting toward the well, we're kinda near the end of the show, but I wanna remind people that we have your link up, Elizabeth Snyder Photography.com. So if people click on that, um, what happens when they click on that?
They
They
will go right to my website, and I have a ton of portfolios up, and I also have a contact me. So I run a find your purpose workshop as well. So in that, it's find your purpose in minutes, not years. And if you're not in Buffalo, that's probably usually what people book, because I'm in Buffalo. But I love doing these, and they are. People are astounded by what they end up finding out, about themselves. It's a pretty cool workshop.
That's awesome. So that's and self-discovery and find it out is like a core part of expanding, all into like
Exactly.
expansive experiences. And I want to thank you for being a guest on the Family Electric Ghost podcast.
Thank you so much for
It's been
having me. This
great.
has been a
And
pleasure.
I want to let everybody know we'll be on all thank you. Yeah, we're
Thank
on
you.
all the major podcast platforms. So by tomorrow, you'll be able to check it out and everywhere that you're comfortable watching or listening to podcasts. But thank you for being a guest.
Fabulous. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.